Secretary McMahon, you've claimed that you want to drastically reduce the already very small federal role in education, and also that you will not cut Title I-A funding. That is still your position, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I'd like a yes or no answer. Do you believe your April 3rd attempt to revoke Title I-A funding from states unless they signed a certification of compliance with your political viewpoint was consistent with giving states more control over education?
There's been no reduction in funding for Title I-A.
As of now. There has not been yet. But again... Right.
And it is not going forward in the budget.
So you believe that that's, so you do, okay. Yes or no, is Title I-A funding actually secure for every school district and state that currently receives it? Or is your goal to make Title I-A conditional on states refusing to provide students of color, LGBTQA students, students with disabilities, or other marginalized students opportunities to participate in diverse, inclusive, equitable, and accessible learning environments?
No, that's what I answered. I-A funding is intact.
Okay. So let's talk about so-called illegal DEI, as you all have called it, a phrase you've continually bring up, that I'm still unclear on, especially after 3 federal judges have preliminarily ruled that your illegal DEI guidance is likely unconstitutional and unenforceable, illegal, as it were. Secretary McMahon, during your confirmation hearing, you were asked by Senator Chris Murphy if an African-American history class violated the administration's position on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You said you'd like to look into it. You've been on the job for a few months now. Have you been able to look into it?
I do not think that African studies or Middle East studies or Chinese studies are part of DEI if they are taught as part of the total history package. So that if you're giving the facts on both sides, of course they're not DEI.
I don't know what both sides of African-American history would be.
Well, if African-American history is part of
certainly,
history,
but what we recognize throughout education is that a course is only 1 year or 1 semester. It would be impossible to teach African history and say European history at the same time. Do you not agree that it makes sense that there would be separate courses for these courses of study? It has happened throughout history. We're able to do it not just in history courses. We're able to do it with different types of literature courses or different types of music courses. One wouldn't learn about Baroque music and necessarily have to also learn about African drumming at the same time, right? We can separate those courses.
Yes, we can. And I think just as we teach U.S. history as a separate course.
Certainly. So you do not agree. So you do agree that African-American cultures and African history should not be eliminated from courses, particularly AP African history?
Well, I think that African history can certainly be taught and not be considered a DEI course.
Oh, thank you. I have a few other examples that I would like your thoughts on, simple yes or no. If this is a legal DEI, an example, would you say that it would be an illegal DEI for a lesson plan on the Tulsa Race Massacre?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Do you know what the Tulsa Race Massacre is?
I'd like to look into it more and get back to you on it.
Okay, so I look forward to that. How about the book Through My Eyes by Ruby Bridges, for instance?
I haven't read that.
Have you learned about Ruby Bridges?
If you have specific examples you'd like
that was a specific example.
I'll be very happy.
It was an incredibly specific example.
I
named a specific
your questions, and I will look into it and get back to you on them.
Thank you. How about a school having a voluntary celebration for Pride Month?
Well, I think that...
voluntary.
Well, let's make sure that in our schools...
This is yes or no?
We're looking... No, it's not.
Okay. How about social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election?
I think our studies should all be taught accurately.
Yes or no?
I think our studies should be taught accurately.
The question was, do you believe that social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election is an illegal DEI? Yes or no?
I think I have said we should teach accurately. We should.
No, you have not answered the question. I don't understand why you're incapable of answering.
I'm just not giving you the answer you want.
No, I want the answer, whatever your answer is.
I just gave you the answer.
No, the answer is yes or no.
No, the answer is I think
the answer is yes or no.
Gentleladies,
thank you so much. I yield back. Inspector General Kafari, yes or no? Do you agree that it's important for inspectors general to tell Congress the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes or no, are you aware this report by the Council of Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency found you, quote, engaged in conduct undermining the independence of integrity reasonably expected of your position?
I understand that's what they wrote.
So yes. Thank you. Yes or no, are you aware this report found you expended nearly $1.4 million in taxpayers' fund to, and I quote, hire a private law firm to investigate 3 former senior members of your staff, most likely for your personal interest and in order to retaliate against them?
Not for my personal interest, Ranking Member.
Are you aware that they found that in their
That's
report?
what they wrote.
So yes, you are. Thank you. Yes or no, are you aware this report found that the federal government had to spend an additional $1.17 million in taxpayer money to settle the resulting retaliation case? Yes or no?
No.
You're not aware. Well, I'm happy to have made you aware. Thank you. Are you aware this report concluded that you, and I quote, abused your authority in the exercise of your official duties and engaged in, quote, a gross waste of taxpayer funds? Yes or no?
Just so I can clarify the question that you raised, that was an MSPB, Merit Systems Promotion Board hearing, that we made a settlement with a litigant.
So you're aware of you're going back to the $1.17 million in taxpayer dollars that you were indeed aware of?
Correct.
Thank you. Yes or no, are you aware that the Integrity Committee found 3 additional issues worth investigating, but they chose to move forward because they had already had enough evidence to recommend your removal?
That's what they wrote.
So yes. The Inspector's General Oversight Body has already determined that this man has repeatedly lied to Congress. But today, we're supposed to trust him as an independent, objective, and forthcoming witness. This is a Fox Garden henhouse. Children, especially unaccompanied immigrant children, need our help. They need someone who can speak truth to power and look out for them. Unfortunately, Inspector General Kafari is not that person, and we're left to wonder if there is any real oversight going on at the Department of Homeland Security. According to DHS employees, in their rush to round up as many people as possible, they've abandoned other critical duties like fighting drug trafficking, human trafficking, and child exploitation. How is that good for children? How is that good for this country? In a time when mass ICE agents patrol the streets, snatching up anyone they think looks like an undocumented immigrant, and when Americans' private data is being seized for unprecedented surveillance, we desperately need oversight. Instead, we have a corrupt and incompetent Inspector General at DHS. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. The gentleman is recognized. Mr. Biggs seeks recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to enter the following documents into the record related to a smear campaign of Mr. Kafari's character and career, which we just heard from the other side.
Governor Pritzker, I don't know you. Governor Hochul, I don't know you. I can tell you that that you strike me as extremely political and rather arrogant, quite smug, good lady. And this is a serious topic, man. We have hundreds of thousands of Americans dead from fentanyl that came across our border. Governor Pritzker, what do you tell a family when they ask you why? Why was this murderer in my state that came here across the border illegally and was encouraged to come to my state by your policies? Go.
You said invited or encouraged. 50,000 people
invited
were
and encouraged by
50,000
sanctuary
people were
policy.
shipped to my state
Yes.
by a
Don't
border
beat around
state
the
governor.
bush. Own it, man.
I'm not beating
Own
around.
it.
I'm telling you, 50,000 people were shipped to my state by a
Would you ship
Republican
them back?
border state governor.
50,000 is a smidgen. We have 15 million cross the border.
I understand.
I'm glad they bust some to
And
your state.
I have
'cause you
and
need
I
to
have
taste
been
it.
clear
Your sanctuary
about
policies
favoring border
Governor Hochul,
security. There was a
I'll give
bill
you the
last
last
year
couple of
on that
seconds
very
here.
subject, sir.
On the
Governor
question of
Hochul.
what
And
I'd
you
say to
opposed
that
it.
family, I would say my heart is breaking for you. I'm a mother. When you describe the pain of a family like that, I've been there. I have held victims' families in my
That's a
arms.
good start.
And I'll tell you
Mr.
this,
Chairman,
you appear
my
to be a
time has
religious
expired. I
person.
yield.
It's always funny the lack of decorum that we get, and people we do drop the gentleman act here oftentimes when attacking women who aren't able to defend themselves with equal time. But that's kind of the theme here, right? Attacking Americans or people who are not able to defend themselves, or at least who Republicans hope can't defend themselves. And that's what we're seeing essentially in Los Angeles. So I would say that this hearing is quite timely. What's happening with ICE and the military in Los Angeles is terrifying, and it's directly caused by Trump's policies and his cruelty. It was Trump's overzealous ICE agents who started this specific incident. And now they want us to get bogged down in arguing over the right types of protest or the right types of way or the right way to defend yourself, the mythical perfect type, so that we could ignore that Trump is the one who is escalating all of this. Trump is the one who ordered in thousands of National Guardsmen over the objection of Governor Newsom, something that hasn't been done since 1965. Trump is the one deploying Marines, not on an enemy abroad, but on the American people who are exercising their First Amendment right in this instance. The only opportunity that they have to defend themselves against lawless lawmakers who are imposing cruelty upon them. For a party of so-called law and order folks, they sure are stampeding over people's constitutional rights and intentionally inciting more chaos, more fear, more anxiety, and increasing the likelihood that people will get hurt. In the end, what's happening in Los Angeles is just one of many incidents where Trump and his administration have not given a single damn about people's safety. For one, the ICE and DHS agents that are arresting people and raiding places often don't even have any kind of uniform or identifying badge. They're masked and they're in unmarked cars. Like others, I've expressed my concern that despite 9 hearings on anti-Semitism since I've joined Congress, that we've yet to have a single hearing on any of the other very pervasive forms of hatred that's rising in our country right now. Anti-Blackness, of course, which remains foundational, anti-Muslim hate, which is approaching levels unseen since 9/11. We can't pretend that these are not pressing when a member of this committee who is Black and Muslim is being called a terrorist by another member of this committee. Still, I was encouraged that today's hearing was planning to focus on the underlying causes of anti-Semitism and hate, something the previous 8 have, quite frankly, failed to do in earnest, because we do need to address the underlying factors if college students and any of us ever hope to live in a peaceful and a safe society. Instead, it was made immediately clear, unsurprisingly, that this is yet another hearing to demonize Muslims and their religion, to demonize Palestinians, including those in Gaza who have undeniably faced unspeakable harms, a humanitarian crisis, and human rights crisis, and particularly the young students, activists, and faculty who are determined to stand up against human rights violations.
Emmanuel Ness, the chair of your political science department, said he supports, quote, resistance by any means necessary, which includes violence. How can you say those statements that you support your Jewish students? Shut up and get out of here.
Gentleman will suspend. Gentleman will suspend.
Get out of here, you loser. Come on. By the way, to be clear, I hold you all responsible for this. It is the attitude that you have allowed on your college campuses that make people think that this is okay. That is why this happens, because you have someone like Emmanuel Ness that says resistance by any means necessary, and I assume this person still works at your school. Is that correct?
Microphone, please.
Any call for violence against Jewish members of our community is entirely unacceptable.
So why does this person still work there?
Any individual of our faculty that has a complaint of breaking our rules, we will investigate them and take the appropriate disciplinary action if warranted.
Corinna Mullen at John Jay College said, after October 7th, the right of Palestinian armed resistance is just, and just last month was filmed chanting, up, up, up with freedom, down, down, down with Zionist scum. This is a professor that teaches your Jewish students. How can you say you have an unwavering zero tolerance policy when this person teaches at your school?
And I believe that faculty member is no longer teaching with the university. Any call for violence, any call for supporting Hamas or terrorism is entirely unacceptable, and we made those statements several times.
This is predictably another public opportunity for Republicans to pit Jewish Americans against Muslim Americans, Muslim against Christian, Black against white, to reinforce the actual underlying factors of hate, which are real systemic harms of white supremacy, and its reinforcement at its highest levels of government. One glaring example is the administration's selective misinterpretation of the weaponization of the civil rights laws. Mr. Nosenchuk, in your testimony, you discussed how the Trump administration is imposing draconian penalties that are completely divorced from supporting Jewish students or addressing anti-Semitism. Briefly, how is this administration's assessment of civil rights violations undermining meaningful oversight of campus safety efforts that would support students?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. As I said in my testimony, there is a proven way to address civil rights violations. Congress, this body, charged the Office of Civil Rights with enforcing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and ensuring that all students have an opportunity to access their education free from discrimination. So when we would conduct an investigation and reach a resolution agreement, it would result in a whole series of steps that many of which my fellow panelists here have discussed to address the anti-Semitism that has occurred and to change the campus climate so that anti-Semitism doesn't exist. In addition, when investigations are conducted, it's not like there's only one type of discrimination that's occurring. Often, when an investigation is conducted and there's evidence of, say, anti-Black discrimination, we might also have found evidence of anti-Semitic discrimination and expanded the investigation to encompass that. We had that flexibility. Imposing a $900 million penalty on a university is not going to prompt university presidents sitting here to think about how they're going to address anti-Semitism. They're going to think about how are they going to fill this huge hole in their budget that's just been created by a penalty that has nothing to do with the discriminatory conduct that has actually occurred.
Thank you. And I want to also be clear, that we don't allow ourselves to be lost in rhetoric. This administration's attack on colleges isn't just about campus safety. I argue it's not about it at all. It's about suppressing education. The point of college, we've talked about, is for students to expand their worldviews, develop critical thinking skills, make them less susceptible to disinformation, and navigate how to stand up for what's right and important to them. Against things that they disagree with, which might include authoritarianism. That's why this administration is doing everything and beyond in its power to dismantle higher education, censor dissent, freezing funding, forcing university presidents to resign, threatening to remove accreditation, banning entire offices and departments and revoking students' visas, disappearing students, eroding student loan programs, gutting civil rights resources, and of course, as it was mentioned at the outset of this hearing, putting an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, the boogeyman of MAGA Republicans who are determined to sow hate and division instead of equity and inclusion. But at the same time as their crusade against diversity, the Trump administration and Republicans have said that colleges must hire more conservative faculty to increase viewpoint diversity on campuses while calling for disciplinary action against professors who believe they disagree with. Really very quickly, Mr. Nosenchuk, do you think it's appropriate for colleges to make hiring disciplinary decisions based on pressure from whatever party happens to be in Congress or in charge? Just a yes or no?
No.
Thank you. These attacks on colleges are not solving the real problem. So make mistakes. This is yet another opportunity to exploit legitimate concerns of anti-Semitism on college campuses to further their attacks on the institutions of learning. I think that it's incredibly clear hearing the opening testimonies and statements and the testimony that we will continue to hear throughout the day. I hope that you will consider that. Thank you, and I yield back. My Republican colleagues say they want to unleash America's workforce, but actions speak louder than words. If you really want to know where they stand, don't just listen to what they say. Look at what they're doing. As we sit here in this committee, we're witnessing the Republican administration dismantle the federal workforce in real time. There have been legally questionable buyout offers, funding freezes, stop work orders. More than 30,000 workers have been laid off indiscriminately. The administration has been demonizing federal employees, convincing the public that government workers are somehow the enemy as all part of a major grift. The architects designing these policies aren't everyday workers, and you need to know that. They're billionaires and corporate executives. They're members of the ultra elite who extract wealth, resources, and labor from working class communities. These are the folks who stand to gain from slashing wages, gutting public services, and hoarding wealth. And that's exactly what they're doing. Last night, House Republicans voted to adopt a budget blueprint that would hand out $4.5 trillion in massive tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy, paid for by cutting vital programs that keep working families afloat: Medicaid, SNAP, Head Start. More than 38 million people across the country, including 3 million people in the Keystone State, rely on Medicaid and CHIP for their health care. Dr. Schierholtz, how will America's workforce be unleashed, as my colleagues say, by Republicans' budget, which provides more than $4.5 trillion in tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations?
Oh, I am on. Okay, yeah, this unleashing is not going to happen because of this House budget. The draconian cuts to health care and food assistance for children and families will hurt millions of workers. That is not an unleashing. It will weaken our economy. Those cuts, as you said, they're being made to make fiscal space for tax cuts that will go overwhelmingly to this country's wealthiest households, just like the TCJA did. Like just to put some numbers on this, the TCJA, It will give the top 1%, in 2025, the top 1% will get $60,000 in tax cuts as a result of the TCJA. The middle class, less than $1,000. The lower class, less than $100. It is just overwhelmingly favoring the wealthy.
Thank you, Doctor. So just to be clear, do you believe that these tax breaks will decrease the income, the wealth inequality, or increase it?
It will unambiguously increase it. When you put the tax breaks that overwhelmingly favor the very, very wealthy, combined with the tax cuts that reduce the incomes of the most vulnerable households, it is literally taking food out of the mouths of poor children. I mean, not literally, but to line the pockets of the very wealthiest households in this country.
Thank you. The truth is, Republicans don't want to unleash the workforce. They want to destroy it and replace it with an economy that only works for the wealthy. And that's proven further by the administration's actions to undermine civil rights protections across the workforce. Over the summer, President Trump went viral talking about black jobs. But one of the first acts as president was to rescind federal anti-discrimination hiring rules and eliminate funding for workplace diversity programs. Black Americans make up approximately 20% of the federal workforce because so many of us grew up knowing the value of securing what we called good government jobs. These jobs aren't just stable and provide fair pay. They've long been a pathway to overcoming discrimination in the private sector and to begin building economic security. By attacking both the federal workforce and civil rights protections, the Trump administration is actively reversing the progress, not just for black workers, but for all workers across the country who have made it in the fight for economic equality. Dr. Shearholtz, is discrimination against workers good for the economy?
It is, okay, you know that is whether it's good for the broader economy is not the key metric that I care about when it comes to discrimination, but no, it is not good for the economy. One of the ways it holds back in the economy is by not letting people realize their full potential. It reduces productivity and is a drag on growth.
Thank you. You know what they say, a high tide lifts all ships. To be mindful of time, I just want to say one more time, actions speak louder than words. Do not listen to what they're saying, see what they're doing. So to recap, Republicans aren't trying to unleash anything. They're dismantling it, destabilizing working families, and concentrating even more power in the hands of billionaires and corporations who have a vested interest in undermining worker power, cutting critical programs, upending vital projects. A strong workforce is the foundation of a strong economy, but their policies are making jobs less stable, wages lower, and opportunities scarcer for all people, especially marginalized people. We cannot afford to let it go unchecked. Thank you. I yield back. Ms. Perryman, just briefly, why is it so dangerous to have mass plainclothes ICE agents arresting people?
So I'll just thank you, Congresswoman, for your question. I'll go back to what I said before, that we know our Constitution recognizes and our country recognizes the importance of trust between local law enforcement, the federal government, and governors. And what we're seeing here is a breach of trust. It's an escalation, and it's dangerous for the American people.
Trump said he was only going to go after undocumented criminals, but that's clearly not the case. Whether through incompetence or straight up racial profiling, ICE and DHS agents are wrongfully arresting U.S. citizens. We've talked about it today, and catching these mistakes often happens too late, after an American citizen has already been illegally thrown into another country, and Trump's administration is doing nothing to get them back. These agents are also going into previously protected spaces, as we've discussed, like churches and schools and hospitals. DHS agents tried to get into an elementary school by lying that they had the permission from the parents. That is a cartoonish level of evil. ICE also arrested a Massachusetts high school senior, Marcelo Gomez da Silva, on his way to volleyball practice. Governor Walz, you're a former teacher and coach. Do you think these kinds of actions create instability for students? And do you worry about increasing anxiety of kids coming to school?
Well, thank you, Congressman. I certainly do. Creating that safe environment where our kids can come and the expectation is to learn, they certainly do. Once again, there's no reason to use these enforcement actions at those locations when there are other tools. And I think, again, this false equivalency that we do not want violent criminals to be arrested, detained, and go through due process, we do. But hugely detrimental to the educational system, hugely detrimental to a system that is dependent on trust and the goodwill of everyone in that school system. So yeah, it is detrimental.
Thank you, Governor Walz. These same kids getting arrested are often being separated from their families. They are scared. They're alone. An attorney is one of the few resources they had access to that is now being taken away as well. The Trump administration has canceled contracts with legal groups that represent those undocumented children in immigration court. This is going to force thousands of kids as young as 2 years old to represent themselves very quickly as we're running out of time. Ms. Perryman, how's a 2-year-old supposed to represent themselves in court?
A 2-year-old can't represent itself in court, him or herself in court. And I'll just say that we are in court every single day seeking to try to ensure that people have access to legal representation, which of course this administration is really seeking to curtail. They're seeking to ignore due process rights.
I was going to say, would you say that it is due process if a 2-year-old is left to represent themselves?
Absolutely. It's a flagrant violation of our Constitution. It's also something that shocks the conscience.
We'll leave it there. Thank you. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would also like to thank Administrator Criswell for being here with us today on a very long day, obviously. But let's be real, what FEMA does has never been more critical because right now, climate change has completely flipped the script. Storms like Milton and Helene hitting landlocked states. That was unthinkable not too long ago. But now we've got places like Asheville, North Carolina, 2,000 feet above sea level and hundreds of miles from the coast, getting wrecked by hurricanes and extreme weather. So Administrator Criswell, as we're seeing more frequent and intense storms, what new challenges are you seeing emerge for your agency?
As you mentioned, Congresswoman, we are seeing events like we have not seen before. I mean, I can think back to a year ago with the wildfires in Maui that were happening at the same time that we had a hurricane in the Pacific heading towards the desert lands of California. The types of events and severe weather events that we are seeing at a scale that we have not seen previously. I mean, as an example, 117-ish disasters last year, and we have over 170 already declared this year. The challenges we face is making sure as we are rebuilding these communities that we do so in a way that makes them stronger against future storms, and not just the risks that they've faced in the past, but the risks that they will face in the future.
Certainly. So as climate change worsens, then would you say that your agency is going to need more resources or fewer resources?
I think we will definitely need more resources to be able to keep up with the pacing demand of the events that we've been responding to.
Certainly. It doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. More disasters in more areas mean more help will be needed. The climate crisis is here. Pretending that it doesn't exist or that it won't get worse only harms the people that we have been sent to this body to represent. For the sake of not only my constituents, but people all over the country who may face natural disasters they've never even thought to prepare for, I hope that we can all come together to give the American people the help that they deserve. That means making sure that FEMA is fully funded and that they are serving all survivors of natural disasters. While we're reflecting and analyzing our disaster response, I'd like to ask you, Administrator Criswell, what has FEMA done to ensure that all communities, particularly the most marginalized, are being fully served? How has there been improvements since previous storms where we have seen critiques or even difficulties in administering service?
You know, I have served as a local emergency manager, and I understand what it is like to be a customer of FEMA. I have seen people within my own communities that have had a hard time accessing the programs. One of the first things that I did was change some of our policies to ensure that we understand everybody's unique needs. For example, we know that many homeowners in all parts of the country don't have traditional mortgages or traditional deeds to their homes, and so we expanded the types of documentation that we accept from people so they can access our programs. These are the kind of barriers that were affecting people everywhere, and we wanted to make sure that everyone that was impacted by a disaster could access our programs with minimal amount of barriers. Those are the changes that we've made. We continue to make more. There's more work to do.
Certainly, but those are such critical steps that we've seen results from. So we thank you for that. I don't think it can be stressed enough how important FEMA is going to be in the years to come. The climate crisis means recognizing that we're about to see weather events we've just never expected. Hurricanes ravaging inland communities, uncontrollable wildfires, as you've mentioned, across more areas of the country, uncontrollable tornadoes, floods, severe storms that are upending lives. Every dollar not invested in FEMA now is just going to burn us in the years to come. When communities are level, it costs more money to fix. We have no choice but to invest if we don't want to see communities completely erased after climate catastrophes. I agree with my colleagues across the aisle that partisanship has no place in distributing government services and aid, neither does race or socioeconomic status. That being said, as more and more of our constituents are affected by increasing natural disasters, it's more important than ever that we maintain that same commitment to nonpartisan distribution of aid in the coming years. I thank you again for joining us and for your testimony today, and I yield back.
I just want to make sure I understand what 4 hours and 20 minutes of fuss is about. Miss Washington was a crew lead charged with helping to provide assistance to individuals in the following the hurricane. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. You said that FEMA has 22,000 employees?
More than.
More than 22,000. Okay. And as I understand it, as soon as you saw verified written evidence that Ms. Washington used partisanship in executing her job, you immediately terminated her.
Correct.
And you're now doing an investigation to determine whether anyone else was involved in this.
Correct.
Seems like that's the right thing to do. You have a bad apple out of 22,000, and you identified it and you fired it. I don't understand what the massive fuss here is. It's obviously, as you say, unacceptable conduct, and you acted immediately. So this, I've not been in here all day, but I've heard the same questions 5 times myself. I'm sure you've heard them many more times. But it does beg the question about what happens to FEMA if partisanship bleeds into its mission. And I want to bring up 2 examples from the last administration. Hurricane Maria, you may recall, in September of 2017, hit Puerto Rico, resulting in nearly 3,000 deaths. Donald Trump was president then, and he blocked the full release of the emergency assistance appropriated by Congress in 2018 and permitted only a small percentage of the money to go to the island. He insisted that Puerto Rico was not in need of that assistance and alleged that the death tolls had been politically inflated, quote, to make me look as bad as possible. In November of 2018, California suffered the most destructive and deadliest wildfire in the state's history. Donald Trump, according to his own former National Security Council staffer, refused to approve disaster aid because the state of California had a Democratic governor and did not vote for him. In fact, this former staffer had to go and pull out the voting records from Orange County where the fire was to show Donald Trump that Orange County had more supporters for Trump than the entire state of Iowa, so that he would ultimately release the funding. Now, that appears to me to inject partisanship in administering disaster relief. Is that your understanding of what I just recited to you, Ms. Criswell?
I was not the FEMA administrator during that time, and I would not care to comment on that.
Well, I think it's pretty self-evident that that is exactly what it was. And this now has continued in the recent disasters. We're here focused on one rogue employee who was justifiably and correctly fired. But Donald Trump went on a misinformation campaign to slander your organization. He at one point said that President Biden was sleeping and he was not responding to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp responded, "The president just called me yesterday afternoon and I missed him and I called him right back and he just say, 'Hey, what do you need?' And I told him, 'We've got what we need. We'll work through the federal process.'" How about this one? Governor Ron DeSantis, everything we've asked for from President Biden, he has approved. And we do think we'll get more approvals. Republican Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, we got what we need from FEMA. We've had FEMA embedded with us since, a day or two before the storm hit. Governor Glenn Youngkin, Republican of Virginia, I'm incredibly appreciative of the rapid response and the cooperation from the federal team at FEMA. Yet Donald Trump was spreading misinformation that FEMA was not doing its job. And in the last few seconds, I'd like for you to explain how that misinformation hindered FEMA's efforts to provide disaster relief to those in need.
Any type of misinformation that creates some type of mistrust in the federal government creates a lack of opportunity for individuals that have been impacted by these disasters to get the assistance that they need and that they're eligible for. And we want to be able to reach out to everybody that has been impacted and assure them that we are there to support them. They should register for assistance, and we can work with them to help them on their road to recovery.
And do you think that there were some people who did not receive disaster assistance because of this misinformation by Donald Trump?
We will never know if there are people that should have applied and didn't, but there is the possibility that individuals may not have applied for assistance because of what they were reading across social media.
Okay. Well, there are plenty of publications and media reports about that being the case, and it is a terrific shame. And thank you very much, Administrator Criswell, for all of your hard work during difficult times. I yield back.